Hi there, welcome to another edition of Counterpunch with Trevor Loudon, exposing the unfolding socialist communist revolution around the world. Please like the show, share the show, get the word out there.
Hands up! Hands up!
Today I'm going to talk about something that's plaguing many countries of the world, and that's racial unrest. We see this all over the world, from the United States and Canada, a lot of the third world countries. We see it in Nigeria, we see it in Latin America. You have different ethnic groups at each other's throats. Now, there is a scientific basis for this. It's Marxist. It comes from Josef Stalin himself. Back in the 20s, he published a very famous book, Marxism and the National Question. For a time, Stalin was actually the nationalities commissioner of the new Bolshevik government in the Soviet Union. So what was Stalin's idea here? Because this book has been seminal, it's been used by communists all over the world, and we see its effects every single day. So Stalin's thesis was pretty simple. You know, the world is composed of nations. They are set up on the basis of language or race or culture, geographical region. Now, the goal of communism is world revolution. And the original Marxist idea was the working class would rise up and take the wealth of the capitalists. It would all be shared equally, and you'd live in a sort of communist paradise with no want and no classes. Everybody would be equal. But when the revolutionaries took Russia, most of the world didn't have an industrial working class. The industrial working class was really only Europe and the United States, and they weren't about to have a revolution. So Stalin looked elsewhere, and he looked back a little bit. He thought, well, if you want to have a revolution and you don't have classes, surely you need to use nationalities, because race and culture are very deep. They're very, class is more mobile. You can actually, in many countries, you can change your class relatively easily, but people are much more wedded to their culture, and of course they cannot change their race. So nationalities are food for revolution. So instead of in the third world countries and less developed areas where you don't have a working class, nationality would be the better way to go. So you see this play out all over the world. It all goes back to Stalin. In the Communist Party USA back in the 1920s, they actually worked to establish a black republic in the southern part of the United States. They wanted to bring Florida and Tennessee and Alabama and Georgia and the Carolinas into a southern black republic that would actually split away from the United States. Not overtly socialist, but it would be, they would use nationalism, they would use race to divide America, which would of course weaken America, and then they could work on the class consciousness of the new people, of the new republic. See, Stalin's idea was you use the race, you use the culture, you use the nationalities to split up existing countries, then you conquered them, the Communist Party would take them over, then these nationalities would be federated into a new Soviet Socialist Republic. You know, the Union Soviet Socialist Republics. It was Russian, it was Ukrainian, it was Tajik, it was Kazakh, it was Uzbek. All of these nationalities federated into a communist federation. But before that, they had used the racial differences in these nationalities to conquer the existing social orders, establish a communist government, then federate them into this new communist bloc. And that's exactly what they intended to do to America. In the United States, they worked with the black people in the South. The Communist Party poured a lot of people into the South in the 1920s and 30s to try and split the South, to try and split the country, to weaken America. In the later years, they worked on through organizations like Mecha, which believed that you could split the southern United States away, right from Colorado and Utah, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Southern California, and return them to Mexico. split them away from the United States by using the Latino populations in those states to return them to Mexico. They never would have gone back to Mexico unless, of course, Mexico was part of the Communist Federation, but it's always used to weaken the United States. The similar movements are occurring in Hawaii, Hawaiian separatism, to re-establish a separate Hawaiian republic. And of course we see it with the Native Americans. The reservations are heavily infiltrated by communists, and they're using the already separate reservations to set up an Indian nation which can challenge the United States for territory, for government authority, etc. It's all done to weaken the target country. The communists care nothing about the blacks, nothing about the Latinos, nothing about the Native Hawaiians or the Native Americans or the Eskimos. They just want to use them to break up the existing country. In recent years, the Maoists in this country, mainly the Liberation Road group, have noticed that the black population is moving back into the South. A lot of blacks are leaving, Michigan, and leaving Illinois and Milwaukee, leaving Wisconsin and moving back to Georgia and Mississippi and places like this. So you're getting a big influx back into the traditional homelands in the South. So what the left are doing, what the communists are doing, is moving thousands of people, organizers, union officials, etc., into the southern states to utilize the black populations and growing Latino population in the South to elect a whole bunch of left-wing Democrats to city councils, county commissions, Congress, etc. They've already used the strategy to flip Virginia from Republican to Democrat. They're on the verge of doing that in North Carolina. They're on the verge of doing it in Georgia. They're on the verge of doing it in Arizona. And they're not too far behind in Tennessee and Florida and other southern states. So they're using the black populations, the Latino populations, the growing Asian populations of the southern area, the southern states, to basically exacerbate racial differences and then run candidates, left-wing candidates of color, like Stacey Abrams in Georgia, like Andrew Gillum in Florida, and others, to move the South to the left. Because the communists understand if they can move the South to the left, all they have to do is flip 2 or 3 more states. North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida would be a real plum for them. Texas would completely seal the deal. The Democrats, the left, will control America permanently from that point. So I hope this has given you a little bit of an insight into the national question, to the Stalinist roots of modern world politics, because this is playing out all over the planet, folks. Marxists realized that class alone was not sufficient to motivate people towards revolution. You had to go deeper into the culture, into the racial, into the religious differences that drive people. And if you can tap into those, you can push almost any population into revolution or revolt if you work at it long enough. So I hope you found this interesting, folks. I hope it's given you a little bit more insight into the way communists are manipulating this country and all around the world, to be honest. So please share the show, like us, get the word out as much as you can. So thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon. God bless America, and God bless all of you. Thank you.